Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I am very excited today to share with you a guide on the new 9.1 story quest boss Orochi, the corrupted variant of X-23 by the Chrono Serpent. Now we are going to discuss different parts of this fight and we're going to break down in the following order. First up, we will discuss all the immunities and passives for Orochi. Then we're going to bring up her X-Gene healing factor, and then the wall and purge mechanic for this fight. And then we will dive into the suggested counters and some good options for this fight. Then finally we'll bring it all together with the fight loop. How do you get the best fight loop and get this fight done? And then we will discuss the different phases of this fight, and in the end we will discuss the changes from the CCP beta footage that I'm using for this video. Now, as a disclaimer, before we jump into the fight, remember this footage is from the CCP beta and there are a few changes since then, but don't worry, I will highlight them as we go through the video. Starting off with Orochi's abilities. Now she is a weapon that is filed to perfection, granting him immunity to stun, bleed, heal block, petrify, and spectre effects. Furthermore, she also has 100% perfect block chance and she cannot be evaded at all. Now Orochi's basic attacks, they will inflict poison and bleed passives, each dealing direct damage to you over 3 seconds. Now these passives are inflicted even through your blocks unless you are going to parry her attacks. So expect a lot of damage when it comes to bleed and poisons. The potency of these passives can be reduced by 20% for each stack of armor on the attacker. You will block a lot in this fight, so I would suggest you to either bring bleed and poison immune champions or champions with multiple armor ups to tank Orochi's basic attacks and reduce her passive damage. Orochi has the ultimate X-Gene healing. Every time you attack Orochi, she instantly heals back 95% of all the incoming damage. This healing cannot be prevented, or the regen rate or the potency of the healing cannot be modified at all. The only way to mitigate or reduce this healing potency is by applying damage over time effects. For each debuff, her regen potency is reduced by 5%, and the maximum potency of this healing cannot be reduced more than 50%. So, how do we achieve that? There are two ways to achieve more damage over time debuffs. You can either bring champs with personal non-bleed debuffs like Shock, Incinerate, Ruptures, and Poison. Or, the fight also rewards you by inflicting poison on Orochi if you perform an intercept, or if you activate the striker, or if you trigger heal block immunity on Orochi. On all of these three cases, you apply a poison as a damage over time effect on Orochi. Applying these damage over time debuffs is important as it activates the Void and Purge mechanic. For every debuff you apply on Orochi, whether through your attacker's personal debuffs or through the poison by performing an intercept, activating a striker, or triggering heal block immunity, Orochi gains a charge towards the Violent Purge. This can be noted by a grey icon underneath Orochi's health bar on the right side. Once the charges hit 10, the icon turns yellow with a cooldown of 10 seconds, triggering the Violent Purge phase. This phase is paused during basic attacks and special attack triggers from Orochi. You won't notice this pause on the basic attacks in this footage, as this is a change implemented after the CCP beta to help prolong the phase. The goal here is to bait out Orochi's heavy attack, primarily by blocking and then intercepting it with your special attack within the given 10 seconds. If you're successful, Orochi's X-Gene healing is disabled momentarily, and the Void and Purge backfires on her with a huge burst damage of 3700 HP per debuff applied. So if you had 15 debuffs on the Purge counter before you intercepted her heavy attack with your special, you will do a total of 55,500 HP burst damage. If you are unsuccessful in intercepting Orochi's heavy attack with your special attack during the Void and Purge phase, once the cooldown is over, a degen is applied on the attacker, dealing 5,800 damage per charge on the Purge counter. So if you had 10 charges on the counter, you fail to intercept Orochi's heavy attack, you will be dealt a total of 5,800 HP as damage. As very evident from this footage, I do not have a special and Orochi's Violent Purge is about to expire. I tried getting to a special attack, but I'm not able to, and I failed to use my heavy special attack in her heavy. And look at that degen damage, just took me out, and one Violent Purge is enough. As we understand the mechanics of the fight, your best options for this fight will be champions with easy access to non-bleed personal debuffs, with multiple armor ups, or bleed and poison immunity. So naturally, your tech champions will probably be your best bet against Orochi, and some of my favorite picks are Lady Deathstrike, Ironheart, Shuri, Guillotine 2099, Prowler, and Omega Sentinel with Nimnor synergy. There are more tech champions that work really well, but I can just share these on the top of my head right now. You can also go non-tech options like Werewolf by Night, Scorpion with Spider-Ham synergy, Spider-Man 2099, Gore, Walks, Onslaught, and Morbius to name a few. To summarize the fight and understand the fighting loop, Step 1 is to apply 10 or more debuffs on Orochi to push her into a Violent Purge. You can still keep applying more debuffs if you choose within the given time of the Violent Purge. Step 2 is to trigger a heavy attack from Orochi by blocking her basic attacks. Armor ups or immunity to bleed and poison will help you tank against her basic attacks quite easily. And step 3 is to trigger your special attack during Orochi's heavy attack animation that will backfire the Violent Purge and deal an instant damage to the boss. Rinse and repeat, and you can bring down Orochi to 0 HP to trigger the subsequent phase. So let me walk you through a complete phase. I'm using a Lady Deathstrike because she is the best option for the fight against Orochi. I'm trying to apply as many ruptures as possible, and for every rupture I apply, you will notice that I'm gaining a charge with a grey icon towards Violent Purge. As soon as I get to 10 of those charges, Violent Purge is activated with a cooldown timer and is paused during special attacks. Now, I am trying to apply as much as possible so I can do more burst damage, and when it's about to expire, I just hold my block, wait for a heavy, and then use my special attack, and look at that burst damage, 92,210. So, all I need to do is rinse and repeat that. Don't worry about the inexorable buff, I will explain that later when we talk about phases. So, again, we are up to 4 debuffs and 4 charges towards the Violent Purge. So I'm gonna just block now. Because I have armors, I don't need to worry about the passive damage of bleed and poison from the basic attacks of Orochi. So she uses a heavy attack, I go in, push her to 10 charges so the Violent Purge is activated. It's paused during the special attack. I'm trying to do as much damage as possible, bait it out with heavy, use my special attack, and look at that, 54,750 damage in one go. And I push her on the next phase. Speaking of phases, this fight has a total of 6 phases, each phase adding on an additional effect to the base kit of Orochi. The phases and the additional effects are as follows. Phase 1, Aspect of Patience. This is the base kit with Orochi with no additional effects. That's how she starts. Moving to Phase 2 with Aspect of Guile. Gives Orochi a non-stacking 20% inexorable passive lasting for 1 second after the special attack ends. And Phase 3, Aspect of Strength. The duration of the inexorable passive will increase to 5 seconds. If you use a heavy attack, you can remove this inexorable passive, so it will be more of a fight of creating space for yourself. Now Phase 4, Aspect of Malice. This renders Orochi's special attacks passively unblockable. And then there is Phase 5, Aspect of Aggression. Orochi gains an indefinite fury, increasing her attack rating by almost 19,000 points. And finally, Phase 6 is Aspect of Rage. Her special attacks do not cost power, helping her trigger non-stop special attacks. Remember, all of these effects are additional and they carry forward to each subsequent phase. So for example, if you're in Phase 5, Orochi will have a 5-second inexorable passive and the end of her unblockable specials with the Fury increasing her damage by 19,000 points. Now before I jump into a complete fight, let me tell you, there were a few changes from the CCP beta. Originally there were 8 phases, but 2 were removed to shorten the fight and balance it. So if you do see some of the aspects on this footage that you don't see in your live fight, remember there were some changes. Now here is a complete list for your info that you might notice, but rest assured they are removed from the live version. So having that out of the way, let's jump into the fight, and then as we discuss each phase in detail while we walk through it. So starting off the fight, I'm going to use Lady Deathstrike, who is arguably the best counter for Orochi, and I'm going to walk you through. So the phase 1 is going to be aspect of patience. Now here Orochi is going to be in her base vanilla form, so there is no additional effects on her. So all you need to do is to keep blocking until she uses a heavy attack, and then you can start hitting her and applying those ruptures. Once you apply 10 ruptures, that will push her into a Violent Purge phase. You can track that by the gray icon just underneath Orochi's bar on the right hand side. Once those charges reach to 10, the Violent Purge phase is activated. You can still keep applying debuff until the expiry, but once the Violent Purge is activated, you need to trigger a heavy attack from Orochi and then use a special attack in there. So right here we have Violent Purge activated, which is paused during a special attack. Now I'm gonna wait for him to throw a heavy, and there is my special attack activated, and look at that burst damage, boom, right into phase 2. Now phase 2 is going to be aspect of Guile. Now here, every time Orochi will use a special attack, she will also get a 20% inexorable passive lasting for 1 second. Now it will not be much of a problem here in this phase because it's only 1 second, and you can kind of play around it. Now the way to remove that is you're going to use a heavy attack after the special, and that will remove the inexorable passive just like this. But even if you don't do that in phase 2, that's okay. You will be able to control the fight. You will not be cornered. Just keep a mental note that during and after phase 2 till the end of the fight, whenever there is a special attack, you're going to use a heavy attack at the end of it, unless you're using a special attack in your heavy and to remove the Violent Purge charges. I hope that makes sense, and we are going to push her into a phase 3, and that phase 3 is going to be aspect of strengths. Now in aspect of strength phase 3, the only difference here is that the duration on the inexorable passive is increased to 5 seconds. Now here you have to use heavy attack every time Orochi is going to throw a special attack. Now this fight is very fast and frantic. I am really unable to keep up with it while I explain you. So the main mechanic stays the same. You apply quick debuffs on Orochi. Every debuff you apply, that gives her a charge towards a Violent Purge mechanic that is shown by the yellow with a cooldown right now. And once you have enough, you wait for a heavy attack from Orochi and you use a special attack in it, and that just backfires and disables Orochi's healing, and you do instant damage, and you can push her into the next phases. And with every phase, additional effects are added. So phase 4 that is just started is aspect of Malice, so that renders Orochi special attacks passively unblockable for 1 second. So during the special attack is active, they are unblockable. You will also notice here that there is an unstoppable under Lady Deathstrike's health bar. That was a phase in the old CCP beta that has been removed, so you don't need to worry about that, as I mentioned earlier in the video during the changes of CCP beta. So again, wait for heavy, use your special, and that is the fight loop. Notice that there is a passively unblockable while she is using a special attack, and the inexorable is there. Remember, do not stop using heavy attack after a special attack. Keep using heavy attack, make it as a habit so you don't get cornered, because if you don't, the inexorable is 5 seconds and it will end up cornering you, and all of those passive bleeds and passive poisons from the basic attacks will really hurt bad. Moving on, the next one is going to be aspect of aggression. So you notice now there is a big fury just beside the gray icon on the left side. Now that Fury gives almost 19,000 attack rating to Orochi, so this is going to be tough. If you get clipped by it, you're going to die very quick. So phase number 5, all the effects from the previous phases are there. So you have a Fury, the specials are unblockable, and also the inexorable buff will be there after a special attack for 5 seconds. So the name of the game is the same: apply debuffs, get the violent purge, bait the heavy, use a special attack but with some additional effects with inexorable, unblockable, and also the Fury that gives extra damage to Orochi. We have managed to bring her down to 1%, and now we are in the final phase, that is aspect of rage. Her special do not cost any power, and she is going to keep throwing her specials, so you have to constantly throw your heavy attacks. Don't worry about the special attack, because if you don't throw your heavy, you're gonna get really cornered. So just here, I did not throw that, but I threw my special attack. Don't worry about the Violent Purge. Violent Purge is deactivated in this phase. The difficult part here is to make sure you keep using heavy and you don't get cornered, because she is going to spam heavy like anything. There is a phase here that is removed. Before, there was here a phase 7 in which after the special attack, the unblockable stayed for 3 seconds. That's why you will notice that the unblockable cooldown is there. But that is not there anymore in the live game. She will be just unblockable during her special, and as long as you keep throwing your heavy attack, you should be good, and you can finish off with specials whenever you have, and that should be enough to take out Orochi. So I hope you guys find this video helpful and you enjoyed watching it. If it helps, make sure to leave a comment. If you have any questions, let me know. See you on the next one. Bye.